Okay, we are live.
We're live. I feel like it should play some sort of like ominous music when you go live, but it just like has this
Uh,
really innocuous stream is live pop up. I feel like that was very anticlimactic to go live. I went like trumpets or some sort of something.
I like that. I will see how I can make this a little bit more grand of an
I
entrance
appreciate
next
that.
time. Yes, for sure. For next time you're here, it will be completely different. But I will open this up. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our live chat today. I'm Shinji Kim, founder CEO of SelectStar. Today, I have a good friend and also an amazing data person, Scott. Sorry, I never actually tried to pronounce your last name before. Scott,
You give it
can
a
you
try. Just do it. Go for it.
Breitenother?
So it's Breitenother. You just don't even say the middle
Breitenother.
bit. Just Breitenother. Squish it together, and
Oh,
just mumble
Brighten
it.
other.
You can
Brighten
even take out
other.
the ends, just like Breitenother. Squish it. I know. I'm
This
sure
is
many
German.
generations ago they pronounced the whole name, but we just kind of bastardize it now.
Yeah, is this a German last name?
It's a German last name. It used to be
You
Breitenother like 100 years ago, and then it was like Americanized.
do you speak any German?
I do, but not because anybody in my
Mm.
family speaks German. I took it from first grade through 12th grade. And graduated high school not actually speaking really good German. And then I lived in Germany a bit after college and got good. And now I got bad again. So give me a couple beers and I can probably speak a bit of German.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, Scott, give us your introduction for those who hasn't heard of you before.
Yeah. So as you know, now I speak a little German. I'm Scott. I'm founder of Brooklyn Data Company and chief data officer at Velir. You know, we maybe I'll give a little bit of background. So, former management consultant that ended up, leading the data team at Casper, and we were one of the early users of what now is referred to as the modern data stack. And then, so I've been building Brooklyn Data over the last 5.5 years. We're a data and analytics consultancy working from everyone from early seed stage startups to Fortune 500s to help them develop their data strategy, implement their data stack. And about a year ago, we were acquired by a company called Velir, they're an expert in digital experiences, website design, CMS implementation. And so I am leading Brooklyn Data, but I'm also chief data officer at Velir, which means I get to do a lot of cool data stuff. How's that for an intro,
Amazing.
Shinji?
Yes.
Was that good?
No, that sounds great. Yeah, I mean, I only found out about Velir through one of our customers. And it seems like Velir actually does a lot of different work with, all these like retail brands and brands that came across before, but like they don't necessarily come across like day to day when you work in tech. So
Mhm.
I'm sure you get a ton of exposure to like how like real companies are starting to or is currently like leveraging data in their day to day.
Yeah, I mean,
So
totally. I think that's been one of the coolest things as Brooklyn Data has grown. That we now work with like gigantic Fortune 500 companies implementing like multi-year, projects to implement their data stack. And the cool thing is, it's not like, oh no, now I'm implementing Oracle. It's like actually I'm implementing Snowflake and DBT at a Fortune 500, using the same tools I know and love. I've been using for years, but now at a kind of massively larger, more complex implementation, which is like the coolest thing. I just feel like every day I have like the coolest job in the world. I have to like pinch myself because it's so cool.
amazing, amazing. I think this is why I thought the topic of today's discussion was going to be like so spot on because
Mm-hmm.
of your current role and also how I've been also noticing things in the market. So maybe we can just dive into it right away. The hot new thing here is Gen AI, and
What's
it is
that?
something
Gen
that
Gen what? Gen AI? Is that a thing? I've never heard of that term before. Is this the?
yes,
Did you just make that up?
generative
I'm just kidding.
generative and AI and LLM. I would say that this is something that you can say, oh, yes, now we have an amazing AI assistant. I can just ask them any questions. It'll give you an answer. It will rewrite my emails and do like plan my day and my diet. Whatever that I ask them to do, they'll do it. But now, like a lot of the things that we've also been seeing and hearing in the industry is how this is going to work with data analytics. Traditionally, data analysts and data scientists, they are in the verge of answering and also coming up with better decisions on top of business data. If machines can read much faster and compute faster, and now they have a somewhat of an intelligence to be able to understand your question, to turn it into whatever SQL compute, data pipeline. What is that gonna look like, and how will data works will become?
Ooh. Well, I mean, I guess so. ChatGPT 4 was released about like exactly 11 months ago. And I mean, Shinji, your life is completely different now, right? I mean, it's changed dramatically now from a year, right? It's completely different. Now, I mean, I think I kind of feel like AI is going to change everything and nothing. is my theory. Um, it's really interesting. I think there's some very obvious things like I use ChatGPT a lot. I mean, it's like great for crafting good emails and doing, primary research on a new industry. Like I actually have found it incredibly useful. For me, it in many ways, it's the new Google. And so like that, I think that for my life will kind of, forever be different because of that. I haven't seen many other impacts yet. I think a lot of people have been kind of really hot for this idea that we'll be just able to ask our data everything, and I don't think we've seen that manifest. I think it'll get there over time, but I do think data is gnarly, and it'll take a while before like we can fully shift to that model. I think we'll start to see gains over the next couple of years. Is what I think the most tangible bits we'll see is this kind of co-pilot bit as we're developing to autocomplete syntax, to help with like, say I want to migrate my entire code base from leading commas to trailing commas. I think something like that would have been really annoying to do. We'll be able to do that with AI. That I feel like is the first wave that we'll feel over the next year. But I also think like as we start to think of more advanced use cases, it really is. It's a story of garbage in, garbage out. So like you really have to have well-structured design data for kind of AI use cases to build off of. And so if your data is in a mess, you're not going to get the value out of AI. And so I think it enforces, good practices to organize your data, to clean the data, to use metadata. I mean, I feel kind of like in Select Star world to like really know about your data so that we can create the guide rails for AI tools to be more effective. I don't know. What do you think, Shinji?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the lot of this like 0 to 1 or creating something from like a blank sketch using ChatGPT or Midjourney or DALL-E. I think it's just like kind of like amazing, like this amount of like
Magic.
Yeah, creativity, like almost gets me to think, well, what am I not thinking of when you have all these ability to do things so quickly? So that is definitely an like amazing ability that I think is going to continue to enable more people and businesses to be more productive. And I do agree. I think Copilot, especially for software engineering, has already been immersed fairly well because Copilot for GitHub was available even before ChatGPT. And I know that like my team has been like just enjoying using it, and now I think the ability is getting better, so much so that in the software engineering side, a lot of people are just like continuing to talk about, and we haven't done it fully yet, but more like machine generated code, which means like more people are actually doing this, or like your developer might be already doing this, but it says that it's their PR, but they actually just generated it.
But you don't care. You don't
going
care
to
who wrote
get
it,
better.
as long as it gets written well. You know what I mean?
And if it can get maintained and
Yep.
debugged by other human whenever things happen, right? Like I think that is the like the next level that we'll need to get to. And I think that future is also very coming soon.
Yeah, but I think one of the things I don't know, concerned is the I guess one of my observations is I have a feeling that a lot of the gains in AI will go to big companies. So we will have a couple of really innovative companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, and maybe some other specific use cases that kind of are very successful. But I do think a lot of the AI gains will go to like Salesforce and Google and companies like that, just because when we're working with our enterprise clients, they're doing a Gen AI POC or a small project, but I've noticed that they don't. There's too many open questions about security, governance, risk of AI that most large companies aren't willing to really build things themselves, or don't want to take on the risk, and so they'd much rather enable an AI feature in Salesforce or an AI feature in Microsoft that they can govern and feel that they're going to see. Let me put it this way: the AI tools are going to be features of SaaS tools that companies already use, rather than like pure innovative AI startups.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think for that does apply for a lot of small medium businesses, but for in my opinion, the larger companies, I think a lot of companies are starting to put this like AI research lab or like AI teams, so that they can actually work on many different models or testing things out internally. And this is, I think, also why like OpenAI and other companies, they put a lot of these models out as an open source model. And there's a ton of research that's happening in parallel, in Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Facebook, so on and so forth. And it's just going to continue to get better. And in some sense, it's kind of like scary that like, I feel like we got to a point where this development is between these companies, like kind of like became this competition. They're just all trying to just one up against one another, but like for what? Other than we created a better model, right? And that
It's the
is
space race.
so that right.
It's great. I think that's like the beauty of human nature, is that we all want to it's like this competitive streak that we all have.
Yes, sure. Better, faster, cheaper, and now more intelligent.
Uh-huh.
So I guess coming back to the data side, I see the tremendous amount of like needs and use cases that a lot of people are going after currently today is more like assistants that can answer my business questions without me having to write SQL. And I think that this is, has some ways to go, but there's definitely a lot of good effort being done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that as a common or like the overall use case that a lot of people would enjoy on top of their data stack infrastructure?
I think it is the number one most requested feature, like Gen AI feature from all of our clients. And we unfortunately have to inform them that it's getting there, but not there yet. I think everyone's ready for the magic. And I think I'm still waiting to see that kind of that level of reliability and consistency of kind of asking your data that so as context, when you rent a consultancy, you really get the full understanding of total cost of ownership, because I could put in something that's rough around the edges and then charge clients $50,000 to implement it, and so like then the total cost of ownership ends up not being it might be this kind of tool that feels really kind of cheap or open source, but I think it makes us really appreciate that there's a lot of work to go into these tools. And so I feel like in consulting, in professional services, we're inherently a little bit conservative. I want to make sure a tool is like ready for prime time before we introduce it to our clients. And I think nothing has hit that kind of Turing test level of kind of quality and reliability that I would be willing to kind of bring it into a client yet. But I'm excited to see when we get there.
Okay. But who's going to do the beta testing then?
Let's do it. I'm excited. I'm excited.
So
Listen,
I want to experiment. It's just that you have a high bar. I mean, before you can confidently say this is something that you can actually rely on.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah, it is a part that we've been doing also a lot of testing internally, and we've seen it's like just with GPT you can get to like 70, maybe 80%, but like actually I would say just 50%, because there is a lot of hallucination. The SQL queries are not necessarily always correct, and like if it doesn't have a table name, then it will like make up a table name. Whereas you would want them to tell you that this table actually doesn't exist, or you would want them to ask you a more clarifying question. Getting that to more like, I guess, like 85 to 90%, I think it is like one step. And then from like 90 to like 99%, I think is like, kind of like the work left to be done for any of the teams that are trying to make this happen.
And where do you think? Will you think we're at that 90% point right now? Kind of, if we survey the market, or?
I think we are getting there. So the way that I see this getting implemented is twofold. One, either like you have a very specific metadata that you put in, like a human decided that this is the proven and true database tables that we should use, and hence like we can generate queries out of that. So this is good enough, but then it's not going to get updated. Like it's not going to have all the latest and greatest.
Agreed.
Like a human in the loop is really important here. And the part that we are trying to, like at Alexa, we're trying to push this boundary for is, instead of that human in the loop, like the select star metadata that continues to update this is something that you can like just plug your LLM for. And one of the things that hence we've decided to do is, instead of SQL or text to SQL generation, we should point people to existing queries and dashboards that already exist first. Yeah, if this, like, because most of the time when people ask questions, the context may not be super diligent or concrete. Like you may not, you don't, like, many times I think as a data analyst, you get this request and the requester doesn't necessarily know what they're looking for. They want to see something, and then they want to interact with it, and then they'll have more questions. So we wanted to first like make sure that all the existing material is being utilized, and then from there, underneath those assets, depending on how things are getting queried, we can put together a custom SQL based on the types of joins and queries, tables and columns that are actually being utilized, because we do track this popularity score for every single object inside inside the data warehouse, and that is something that I would say was getting us to closer to 90%. And Yeah, I mean, it's still in progress, but we just like pushed our private beta with customers. So
Awesome.
I'm quite excited
I'm
to like
excited to try it out.
see
I
how
mean, that feels immensely useful what you're describing. Because navigating your data, and even you get to these big companies, and I feel like it's all the same. It's like if these big companies even only knew what they knew, their knowledge is dispersed and kind of all over the place, and helping to navigate makes a lot of sense. I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what that 90 to 99% journey looks like. That one.
yeah.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to. I'm excited to see where it gets.
Awesome. Yeah, we'd love to have you on board for beta testing. Give us all the edge cases that you can think of.
Perfect. Sign me up. I'm Mr. Edge Case. I mean, I think
Yes.
that the challenge, though, that we all have to keep in mind as we get into this space is like, what does security? What does making sure things don't slip through? Like that's like, whenever you reduce friction, like friction has many bad aspects to it, but also has good aspects. So like it protects people from getting into things they're not supposed to get into. And so when we reduce friction, we just have to be much more thoughtful about access control, governance, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. So I see two parts with AI.
Yep.
One is this like access control, because like right now we are talking about the use case of like internal organization use.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, like you don't want people to be able to just ask questions and then like get something that they are not supposed to get. But on the other hand, I think for a lot of external use cases, I think now these are like things that kind of comes out on the news, like, oh, like somebody was able to buy a car for like $1 by talking to a ChatGPT, like assistant, or like there was like some security breach because like some hacker was trying to get this through. So it's kind of like the next level of I don't want to call it like next level of like whether you want to call it pen test or social engineering that humans used to do is now going to be against all these models.
And I think it also will, call us out on things we should have already been doing. I'll give you an example, like, PII, personally identifiable information, is kind of, it's your name, it's your phone number, it's your social security number, but it's also combinations of data, which I don't think people are really being as thoughtful as they could be about, like, what combinations of data can help me identify Scott or Shinji. But when you have ChatGPT that has access to a kind of fairly innocuous data set, but that data set has data that when combined can identify individuals, I think it's calling us out that we really have to be very thoughtful about what, like, actually do the diligence to understand what is PII and what combinations of data points could be PII. It's like,
I mean,
you know what I mean?
This PII topic has been discussed even in the past with GDPR, CCPA, often enough, so that, I mean, this is why Google does not have their ad ID anymore. They don't allow cookie tracking anymore, and like there's no way to like track one person because internally they've decided there's no way, because you can spot somebody in this specific, like whether you're doing it as a geo or something else, like there is a way to somehow personally identify person, and we cannot be liable for that. So they just got rid of the whole ad ID. Back in 2014, or actually 2012, when I used to work at Ad Network as their product manager. Like this was the whole thing. We are doing conversion tracking, like not just click throughs, and then like we create our own attribution model of a profile, right? But that profile, even though it is anonymous, once you start putting that with like some kind of geo and then you match it with like whatever anonymized data, you can actually spot a person, and that's I think you cannot go against it. So I actually think any of the PII side, you do have to just mark them, and then it's about the protection. The other side of actually data privacy is known places and names. You sometimes want to make sure the places are actually like public places or businesses are showing up correctly as addresses rather than like somebody like obviously somebody's home. And
Yep.
I think recognizing that for you know whether it is for the data discovery tools or whatnot, it is also important. And this is like
Yeah.
one of the things that I would say a lot of data privacy tools miss. Like they'll just like
Yeah.
look at anything that looks like a phone number, looks like an address, and then you attach PII. Actually, no. Like I mean, this is I think why a lot of the cloud provider data privacy solutions hasn't been quote unquote working as
Yeah.
advertised so far, and a lot of this is something that I hear from companies like Airbnb, Discord, like a lot of these like companies that really has to deal with individuals'
Yeah.
personal privacy. Yeah, told me so.
I think I think your point about this kind of
cases.
new modern pen test where you basically have an AI kind of application try to poke holes and put data together and see if it can be a person, tries to do kind of normal workflows like, where's the closest Pizza Hut? And, yeah, I think that's gonna be a huge business.
Yeah. I mean, so like relation to that, and also like for our like trying to get our quote unquote accuracy higher. Something that I've been recently like reading about has been the eval frameworks and eval model. So like like there's so much we can do like as like for generating test cases, all
Yeah.
these edge cases that we can come up with. Like so if we were to, let's say, use eval, like create evaluation test like with machines, like I see like the two sides of like, is that even valid? Because like it is going to be all it may not be as like true or accurate. It will still miss the the actual cases that you want to test. Or do you feel like it is actually going to cover like 99%?
Yeah, I mean, I think humans can't keep up with testing algorithms. It has to be algorithms testing algorithms. I mean, I just like it. It's not even an issue of like will it be enough. It's just like I think objectively, you always need some sort of human testing, some sort of business logic testing. But I just don't think at the pace things are evolving, we can rely on a human to do the testing. It truly needs to be algorithms testing other algorithms. And the challenge is, how do you test the algorithms that are testing the algorithms to make sure they're doing a good job? You test them with algorithms. And so like, I mean, it's going to be layers upon layers.
But the main logic and the I guess the flow should still be governed by human in the beginning. It's the actually case generation that I would say, yeah, I agree. Like algorithms we would need to generate all possible cases.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think QA, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be really interesting to see how AI helps.
I guess as a side note, what is your opinion on then synthetic data? Synthetic data being utilized for software development, for like data eval, like so I've seen like companies using like tools like Tonic to actually do their software development, and the developers actually never gets to touch real production data. And like can that really work? Do you believe that this actually can work well as like 100%? Or I don't know if you had any clients like using that for their development side, but
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it has to work, or some sort of variation of it has to work. And I think when I say variation, sometimes it's pure synthetic data, sometimes it's kind of partially synthetic or de-identified data. Like the folks over at Privacy Dynamics, I think, do a really good job where take your data set, you might identify some fields that need to be hashed, some fields that need to be kind of changed to a nearest neighbor to de-identify. So I think there's different approaches to it, but I do think it has to happen. I think for a couple reasons. if I look at the data world, so if I'm in the data world and I kind of see one Ghost of Christmas Future a couple years out, people are using DuckDB to develop. If I'm doing kind of data development work, do I really need to run that in the cloud, or can I just run it locally? If I'm building a data model, why am I kind of pushing everything to the cloud, consuming CPUs when I've got a perfectly good CPU on my desktop? And so I think you'll start to see a lot more development actually done locally, which is, I think, different from more traditional backend development, where backend development has been done locally, then pushed to prod, by the nature that all the data sits in the cloud. And data, like all of our development work, we might write code, but we're still running it in a server in Snowflake. And I think we're going to shift to a model where people are actually running their tables, running their models locally, training their models locally. But do I want my full production data? If I'm a hospital, do I want my developer to have a subset of our actual patient data on their desktop? Probably not. So I do think it's going to be something that companies like MotherDuck, DuckDB kind of really are thoughtful about. I think it's going to be with us for a while. This need for synthetic or de-identified data for local development.
Yeah, I agree. I think the local development is not going away.
Nope.
But there will always be that. I think that aspect of getting the production data or fetching the production data, given your role and given the purpose of why you need this data for, the copy or the generation of the data that looks like is good enough for you to run through, I think is going to be a lot more seamless with AI. And I think that is one of the opportunities that AI can really work well. And I think that kind of makes me think more about data governance and security. I think this is an area that we talk about a lot. First and foremost, data governance, because you also want to have a good organization of data. You want to have a good quality of data in order for your external Gen AI applications to work really well. But also, I think just overall creating and managing policies, rules, implementation of those access and rules, and how that actually gets applied. Not just defining policies, but how it actually works inside. I think that is something that it is kind of really ripe for disruption now on the data governance and security side.
100%. And I'm shocked that it's taking this long. Shocked. I mean, I think it's just data governance and security. We should have been talking about this 3, 4, 5 years ago. I mean, I think I've been.
Which side are you talking about? The organization side or the access control policy side?
All of it. I mean, I feel like for the last 5 years, I've been someone with a cardboard sandwich poster board in front of me, saying the end is near on the street corner, and everyone's been ignoring me, talking about we need to talk about security and governance. And I'm so thrilled that people are talking about it now, because we were talking before, we've reduced friction. We've rightfully convinced organizations that they need to bring all their data in one place, to join it, to kind of have better insights, better view of their business. But we have reduced friction. We have put everything, all of the juiciest stuff, in one place. And so, I mean, I think we are kind of ripe for a need for greater security and governance around access control, around looking for malicious and anomalous behavior. And I don't think the current tooling is meeting the need. And I think there's a lot of really interesting startups. There's Telescope, Lizzie over Telescope's doing some really interesting things. TJ's building Titan to kind of look at more role and access control management. And even I think it's silly things budgets, and right now in a consumption-based spend, anybody can trigger a big spend spike and not even know it. So I think the Ian and Niall over at Select are doing a lot of interesting things around budget management. So I think there's like we're suddenly realizing that all of the assets are in one place and anybody can access them, which has risk for leaks or risk for people seeing things they shouldn't see, or risk for spikes in spend that are not good.
Got it. Yeah, I understand. Regarding like spikes and spend, I think it is more of just I guess maybe it's kind of like a side effect of moving fast. I think it's actually a good thing that people have actually decided to do that migration to the cloud, put everything in there so that people can easily join and run queries together. And it's just after effect. Just like
I don't think it's bad.
you give access to everyone to the BI tool, and now you're gonna get a lot more questions about data. And
I mean, we gave people a key to the car, but now we have to give them a curfew. I mean, I think that's like I don't think none of the stuff is bad. It's just I do think we need to put more structure around it because I think the risk is real.
Yeah, risk is real. I think that a lot of companies do end up like putting like super sensitive data, separately, and then they call it more of like a data mart. But I'm sure there are also a lot of exceptions or examples. Oh, we didn't realize that this data was also getting pushed into my data warehouse, things like that. But I guess going back to more of the security side, the part that I see is that a lot of enterprises already have like a, what it used to be pre like modern data stack is like everyone already has siloed tool. So they manage their own access, and conversion of all of those data in one place is making this more the needs to be more greater. So with that, I think there is a lot of effort going on, but it is a main part that I feel like it can actually be more automated, because like you mentioned, companies like Telescope, data privacy companies will detect what is sensitive, deemed to be sensitive, based on the main compliance that you want to meet and regulations you want to meet. You can generate the policies around those data. And with both of those being, transferred to other platforms, because like even with SelectStar, we actually push any tags that you define in SelectStar automatically to Snowflake. So you can have each role-based access or policy-based access to run directly on whatever application that those data exists. So I feel like the era of top-down governance is we are gonna see less. There's going to be a lot more what I would call, and this is also it's a Gartner term, but adaptive governance on the security side. I think it will happen, and I'm actually quite excited about that. At the same time, because we are humans, we will need more top-down level of visualization and understanding of how the access and data is flowing. And this is also why it's also more important to have a good visualization documentation, whatever, that can also be generated now with a good amount of metadata and analysis. That's how I see the future coming through.
Yeah, I love that, because it's like how is every company, maybe like the largest companies will have in-house and external counsel that can say, hey, this is what CCPA means to you for data. But I think most companies cannot. And so the ability to just like have an adaptive governance tool that can basically load in CCPA requirements and tell you what's working, what's not, and where you're violating, where you need to kind of remediate is huge, because most companies will not be able to navigate the evolving. I mean, we're getting to the point where Texas law is coming into place. Like every single state is coming up with its own law. And like, how does a medium-sized business navigate all of the local privacy regulations? It's impossible.
Right, for sure. I mean, in a way, and that it usually hits like larger companies first, right? In a way, like for also like GDPR compliance, it is like to me mind-boggling. There's like no like real quote unquote certification you get,
Nope.
you can get, or like, even like I guess you can get audit, but it's not a real audit because there's no like a standard regulation that people follow. At the same time, you can get sued or fined for not meeting
Yep.
if you get audited directly. And I think that part is it makes, or is it like 5 years ago when like Big ID was big? Like, that made a lot of people to just like put a lot of documentation and policies in. Now
Mhm.
it's really becoming more of like, does it actually like, does it say hold true? And like, can you easily get this up-to-date audit report that you can look of what has happened or what has been accessed,
Yeah.
in what form, by whom? A lot of the policy generation, I think, is the other part that can be done through Gen AI, especially around like documenting, like why are we collecting this data, where are we using this for, things
Yeah.
like that. That actually puts a lot of lawyers out of the job, but yes, that's like one part
I
that
think
I
they'll
see.
find more work to do. I'm not worried about the lawyers.
Yeah, maybe that's right. There will be more regulations, so the lawyers will have actually more work, but different type of work. Probably, I think overall for any industry, it's gonna be less menial manual work and more work around either keeping up with the changes that's continuing to happen in the society, and it's something that you actually might have to like think hard about to make it happen.
Yeah, this is what keeps me excited. Data never gets boring. Technology never
Never
gets
gets
boring.
boring.
Always keeping us on our toes. I love it.
Keeping us on our toes for sure. Um, I know we've been like just checking the time, so we have about 20 minutes left. This was a bit more, for me actually, a little bit more experimental format, more open-ended, talking about the future. I want to make sure that if anyone is actually intently listening, they add their questions or comments so that we can also address those topics. I don't see any comments right now, so we can move on to our next topic. But
Ooh.
please, I'm putting a request for comments here.
Cool.
So let's talk about the modern data stack.
Well, we're not allowed
The
to call it
world
modern
that we
data stack
live in.
anymore.
Okay, what do you call it now then?
I don't know. I'm still figuring out the name. But finish your thought. I'm sorry.
I think you said it before. Mature. What is the mature modern data stack become?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I feel like it's been so exciting to see the evolution and the maturing of modern data stack. I feel like I don't know. I feel old. I feel like the elder statesman in one of like you, me, like we've been around since the beginning of the modern data stack. And it's super exciting. I mean, I think like it's so Brooklyn Data, we implement. I was kidding. Like you can still say modern data stack. We implement the modern data stack all the time. So tools like Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks, a lot of DBT, and what we've seen is, well, I think we all actually thought there was going to be a lot more consolidation. I'm still waiting on the consolidation. I keep saying this is the year. I think this will be the year where we see even more consolidation.
Sure.
I think that Gen AI has been a little bit of a chaos monkey in like the modern data stack space. It's like reigniting some companies that were still trying to find their place, and now they've tweaked to be more AI focused. So that's been an interesting dynamic. I think we're clearly in the Snowflake is clearly the leader in the kind of data platform space, though. I think Databricks is going to have a wild year. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of interesting things coming out of Databricks, and then I also think tools like Microsoft Fabric. Like I do think there's going to be some really interesting things coming from the kind of the Microsoft space. What else? We were we've really been digging, and I've really been digging kind of dbt's latest features. I think, at the last Coalesce conference in San Diego, Tristan Handy did a talk and basically said that they're going to be very intentionally leaning into differentiating the core, the teams, and the enterprise offering, and we're starting to see it. I mean, we're starting to see enterprise features that allow for metrics layer, managing multi-project implementations. Column level lineage just came out this week. I think they're definitely. I'm definitely feeling that vision that Tristan described in October manifesting, and we're really digging it because on the Brooklyn Data side, we've, I would say half our business these days is enterprise companies, and these features that are coming out are solving like real pain points that we have in the enterprise. We're large companies that have multiple data teams that have to interact and have to, want to use the same common models, but need to manage data contracts and dependencies. Like, back when I was doing, DBT at Casper, we never thought about these things. But, we're at a point where the use cases, the customers that are using these tools are evolving and getting more sophisticated. And it's just been really thrilling to see these sophisticated things come out. Now, I feel like I said, like an old guy that, the thing that gets me the most excited is column level lineage. Like I'm that like boring and old guy. It's like, yes, finally. So it's there's a lot of maturation going in the kind of the right side of the data stack. I think there's a lot of interesting things and innovative things happening on the left side of the data stack upstream. We're seeing a lot more folks start to do streaming. Stream was really hard before, and now it's still hard, but it's getting easier. You're seeing Tinybird a lot, loving what DuckDB and MotherDuck are doing, and really finding it fascinating what Modal is doing for kind of abstracting compute and kind of cloud resources. So it's like, I feel like maturing on the right side of the stack, a little bit more kind of big moves on the left side of the stack. What do you think?
Well, column level lineage is a topic that I talked about multiple times on this show. I feel anxious about column level lineage, but it's been pretty fascinating to see a lot of companies starting to roll out their column level lineage in their tooling. And I'm hoping that this will get better, because we also see the varying levels of how column level lineage can be, like how accurate is it? How does it actually scale? Does it actually provide a good experience? Because if you have a lot more objects, it's hard to navigate, things like that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what will come up. What I've been more on SelectStar side, what we've been more excited about is just leveraging that structure of column level lineage to push out notifications or propagate tags, defining that impact to be not just because it's on the downstream, but it's a downstream that's used in this, for this purpose. And I think adding that type of metadata on top of lineage, it has always been really helpful, because lineage works kind of like your map of your data pipeline.
Yeah, I think that makes tons of sense.
Yeah, I mean, what I was also curious to hear a little bit more about, and is kind of this, like I feel like the data warehouses, data phenomenon is something that's continuing. It's probably not gonna change. I think we've gotten to a good place. There are definitely it's certainly not one size fits all. I think both Snowflake, Databricks, and I don't know as much about other Synapse, or I guess now Microsoft Fabric. I think a lot of these vendors have done a lot of breadth of feature that they can add on top. Now, what I hear from the market ton of time is that it doesn't always like work as intended. And I think that is going to just take some time. I don't know if you think that, this will all just overall like continue because like these vendors are, it's important for them to provide this feature so that more people can use their compute. But at the same time, I do see a good amount of pain ton of time, especially around like, you are trying to scale workloads, or if you actually consider running your Spark jobs on Databricks versus AWS EMR versus like, I mean, a lot of companies now use EKS for that too. Like it eventually still becomes a lot of that, like total cost of ownership exercise. And I sometimes I feel like we're going back in time, because I feel like these types of user experiences and dealing with elastic compute should have been solved, but I still hear a lot of cases that it is not like fully solved. And I don't know whether that is just about like, pricing, or but I actually think there is a lot on the technical side that also needs to improve.
Yeah. And we're old. See, I told you we're old. We're I can't believe we're still talking about this. But yeah, and we got our first question. Do you see? We got from Stephen McCarthy asked a question.
Yeah, we got it. Okay, let me put this question on our screen.
Cool. You can do.
You mentioned that you don't see the future of AI being innovation and rather an add-in to existing system. As someone who's much more interested in innovation that can come along rather than doing things faster, do you have a guess as to where new research and innovation may come from?
Ooh. Yeah, so I would say like I don't think there will be no innovation, but it'll be innovation with a lot of the innovation will be within existing systems. So like an innovative add-on to an existing system. Just because I think those existing systems have a lot of trust from kind of enterprise customers. I do think like there's going to be like large tech companies like Facebook, Netflix, Airbnb that are actually innovating and developing on their own. And so I think you'll continue to see them be an engine of innovation. I guess what I was saying is like, I think it's a little challenge. I think the idea that a new exciting competitor will come in to take on a traditional incumbent, and that new exciting competitor will be an AI version of the traditional incumbent, and will take on that traditional incumbent. And I don't know, maybe that's like an AI version of a CRM or an ERP or something like that. Like I don't know how like we're going to get a new disruptive AI version of some of these traditional companies coming out, because I think the large companies will probably be building those AI features themselves. I do think like OpenAI, Google, those type of places. I think it's going to be challenged. Traditionally, we've seen like academia have really interesting things come out. I think that'll still be true, but I do think the cost barrier to train models is so substantial these days that we probably will see it, where traditionally academia had a big chunk of the innovation. I think that it'll still have a piece, but it'll be a much smaller proportion as these larger companies have the access to the compute and capital, and they're starting to lure away the academics. So that's, I don't know, maybe, hopefully it doesn't feel too dystopian, but I do think, just the barrier, the compute barrier, the cost barrier, and just like the trust barrier is going to see most of the innovation happen in bigger companies. Ooh, what do you think, Shinji?
The way that I see with kind of like the leaps that we will make on the research and innovation, like right now, like kind of like the roadmap for OpenAI or any research arms of Google and whatnot are going to this like ANI to AGI to ASI, right? We have right now AI that is focused on being able to research and then tell you or generate something that is going into more of this like narrow intelligence that are gonna actually be able to perform tasks for us but we are kind of humans in the loop right now. I asked somebody I asked ChatGPT a question. It's going to do something, and then I evaluate the answers, and then it will come back, and then it will do the following question. I think there is that context that now I share with the AI that can continue. Let's say I make this as a continuous task, do this every day or every week, whatever, based on this varying input that's going to happen over time. So I think that's where we are right now. The next one is going to be the agent, right? The AGI, the general intelligence. It's kind of like human. I may have now, the actual thinking human that actually has a context, and or maybe the context is better than I do. So even if I don't know what I exactly wanted for the specific tasks that I am currently laying out to GPT, it's going to tell me that it's going to do these other things, and you should also consider X, because it's going to be the expert on my fingertips that can also do execution and thinking and execution. I think that thinking part is where the agents will become readily available. And I don't think we're too far from the future. And I think that is another kind of the leap that we all take, that we're going to start seeing things that we cannot even imagine right now. You know what I mean? To use AGI for. And I think this is also, could be the time that is the time when we say, I just bring this AGI enabled tool that is going to be my data analyst or data engineer, whatever. But it's still on the execution. And I think the part that AGI doesn't get to is how AGI interacts with the environment, the human environment that works in. So it's almost I would say that's when I would say oh, I have a robot that it can actually do everything and understand like a human. And then I think what a lot of I think the researchers say that we are almost there. It's but then where they are going after is the ASI. Have you ever heard of this?
I feel like you are. You're. I mean, I've heard of the term, but I feel like you have done a lot more thinking about this than I have.
Super intelligence is the God. Everyone's supposed to create, anything that's beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine what that would actually look like or how that would, manifest. But right now, from the leaps of innovation, I think that will happen when these things become a lot more readily available. Today, I think a lot of this between the narrow intelligence or the current LLM models with the between that and the agent side is starting to get really immersed into largest companies, governments, all the places that can this be utilized for. It's but I think the leaps of innovation and the types of applications that are different is going to come from once this the agent model is readily available for most of us.
And Shinji is 1,000 times smarter than me. I mean, that's look to me for advice on the next 3 months. Look to Shinji for what the next 10 years is going to look like. I can't look that far. My crystal ball is pretty foggy. Well, hey, I think we're almost at time. But Steven, that was a great question. Awesome.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Oh yeah, we are almost at time. So I guess what do you have as we wrap up here with the future and the data platforms? I think it's a really exciting time to be in this era.
Yeah, totally keeps us young. I mean, I think it's an exciting time. And I would say I'm going to be out in Data Council end of March in Austin. If anybody's around, I think we've got some awesome talks. But yeah, if anybody ever wants to reach out, I'm Scott at brooklyndata.co. I'm always happy to talk about data because, like Shinji said, it's the coolest. It's the coolest space to be in. Team data.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to like continue this type of conversation in my chat. So if this is your first time, feel free to follow our page, and we plan to do this every other Friday. And I won't be at Data Council, sadly, but
I'll have like a cardboard cutout of you, Shinji. I'll bring like a cardboard Shinji with me.
Right, awesome. Yeah, and then I get to meet everyone then for sure. But I'll be at Gartner's Data and Analytics Summit in Orlando. It's gonna be my very first time in Orlando, and I'm excited.
Have fun.
Well, thanks so much, Scott, for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. Enjoy your weekend, and I will see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.